Well, good evening, everybody. I hope everyone is okay and not getting too stressed out with all the crap that's going on, and not too stressed out with the heat because apparently we've got a couple of months of this heat. So yeah, we've got a super El Nino. Now, this this live stream is going to be about today oath breakers, right? Oath breakers. Now, you can get different types of oaths. You can get an oath in court to tell the truth. You get other oaths to promise to do something, an oath to God, an oath to the people, an oath to, anyone can make an oath, and it's serious too because it's a declaration, a binding promise, right? An oath, right? And I found it really, really, really ironic. I mean, you got other oaths like promise to not harm anyone, i.e., Hippocratic oath, right? Oaths are really, really serious, right? Written, even worse. It's even worse if it's written. But usually someone can, promise God an oath which is from your heart, which is just as binding as a written oath, right? Understand the seriousness of oaths, right? I mean, I'm going to give you an example. I knew this lad who decided he didn't want to he promised God in prayer, promised God to keep an oath, right? That he weren't going to get married because he, as far as he was concerned, he belonged to God. And guess what? 1.5, 2 years later, he got married. So obviously, he didn't think seriously enough about the oath, right? This is why you get in the past Lord of the Land doing an oath to the king, or the police doing an oath to serve the king, promise, all this, that, and the other. It's an oath, it's a binding contract, right? Verbally, written, or in your heart, whichever. In God's eyes, right? It's a binding contract, right? That's why you should never promise God something unless you can't keep it, right? So, it's come out yesterday. The government are changing, and the king is changing to his oath to be the defender of the faith, right? The faith, not many faiths, the faith, which is Protestant, by the way. Look it up. The king is supposed to be Protestant, right? No, I don't give a shit about what religion a person is, because their actions speak louder than the words. And if they promise to be religious and do something, then they should do it. Like Abraham, be a man of your word, right? Like yes mean yes, you know mean no. Anything beyond that is basically abhorrent to God, right? Abhorrent, right? It's from the devil, right? Now, the king has made a statement, and I think the government have made him do this. This is why he's just a puppet, right? And he will resign soon. I think it's the death of the monarchy, what he's done. It's the death of the monarchy. Now, when he took his oath, said he promised to defend the faith. Well, what faith is he supposed to be? Protestant. And yet now he's saying he's the defender of all faiths, right? How can that be? Does that not break his oath? Because he said he'd be a defender of the faith. Now, when you look up history regarding when Christianity came to England, it's from the 2nd century, so that's 101, because understand, century is give or take a century, right? So, the 1st century comes, 101 AD, the Christians start coming up because of Hadrian's Wall and all the rest of it, right? And basically, to convert the British Isles to Christianity, they had to come over, right? And I think one of the saints came over, apparently. Well, they call them saints. I'll call them disciples or followers of the disciples or followers of Jesus. To me, first century, well, the beginning of the century to the first century is where the most of the truth lies in your religion, right? As a Christian. So when you look at it from the second century to the fourth, the second century is when they started coming over converting the English, the British Isles, and then the fourth century it was actually established, right? Actually established, right? So the whole of the English Isles, right, was Protestant by the fourth century, which means 300 AD, roughly, something like that, right? So, how many years is that? How many years is that? Well, that's 1,925 years since the first Christian came over and preached to the British Isles, right? So that's 1,925 years that Britain, United Kingdom, England, whatever you want to call it, right, has been Christian, right? Been Christian. And he was talking about succession, right? Look, in God's eyes, an oath is serious. And do you know what that means if you break the oath? If you go against the faith that you profess to believe in, and yet you're taking on, like King Solomon did, taking on other gods, other religions, right? It's serious, very serious. Basically, he made an oath in front of God, and then he slapped the Holy Spirit away by accepting other religions. Now, I'm not saying it can't be tolerant. It's just a dominant Christian country. This, it's not Jewish, it's not Muslim, right? It's not Sikh, right, or anything like that, right? It was Protestant. That's why the Protestant and the Catholics always fight, because over the years it got changed from Catholic to Protestant to Catholic, right? That's why you have the conflicts in Northern Ireland. Well, they've not been fighting for a very long time because they've got together now because of what's happening in Ireland, right? But I'm not going to go into that bit. What I'm trying to get at is that the king has changed 1,925 years of this country being Christian. Because now he's saying he's the defender of all faiths. How can you be a defender of faith? You're not Cyrus. Cyrus didn't. He tolerated it, but at the end of the day, he didn't. He didn't. Oh, by the way, I'm going to go back on my oath to defend the Medes and Persians. That's where I'm from, right? Because Cyrus were Medo-Persian, right? Yes, he tolerated it, but he made sure he clapped down on them and said, "Look, you pay your taxes, otherwise we'll come after you," right? But at the end of the day, you're talking 1,925 years of being a Christian country, right? Not even America. Not even America has been that long. You're talking on a couple of hundred years since the British went over and colonized America, right? 200 years, 300 years max, right? 1700s, right? So you're talking 300 odd years max, right? Off the top of my head, right? The fact is that the king basically has committed treason. Why do you think they got rid of the Treason Act? Why do you think they got rid of it? So Andy Burnham and all the rest of it can get away with really nasty, bad stuff, and yet they can't be tried because they got rid of the Treason Act, right? The Treason Act were there for a reason, right? And even the king was subject to it back then. The king was subject to it, right? Well, armed in France with all the kings that armed then in the Civil War, way back in like 1800s, 1700s, or whatever it was when it happened, right? Look deeper, people. Look deeper into these things, right? And then you get to start to understand, hang on, I'm not going to give up my faith in God and Jesus, right? No. But I don't need to be a particular faith to stand up for what's right. Right is right, wrong is wrong. Not the inversion that the king's done. Wrong is right and right is wrong, because basically he's committed treason, and Parliament has committed treason too, right? Because it's not full of Christians in Parliament. And what do you think them priests are going to do in Parliament? They're going to get kicked out of Parliament, right? Because Christianity is no longer the dominant religion. In fact, it's going to be pushed weaker than the rest, right? A minority, by the way, will become a minority. But I bet you they don't uphold the minority shit that they keep doing to us lot and telling us that you're picking on minorities. No, you got to pick on one particular religion all the time. Well, I don't. I cover them all and show you that they're all fucking corrupt, right? Literally all corrupt, right? This is why when you get oaths, this is why cooperation is not tied to any religion. Well, they're tied to demonism. That's the only oath they give, and it's done in secret to the devil. So, as far as I'm concerned, this world needs sweeping clean, literally everything, right? Everything. Because this world is run by Satan. He owns everything on the earth, but he doesn't own the earth, right? He doesn't own it, right? It doesn't belong to him. He's just been shoved down here like a temporary tenant, right? And he's angry, like spitting his dummy out, throwing his dummy out his fucking pram or his cot, right? Because he can't get his own way. Look, when it comes to oaths, they're serious, very, 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 very serious, right? And to make it in front of God, while everyone's watching on TV, and then says the defender of all faiths, whoa, 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 whoa. Your religion doesn't stand no more. It doesn't stand no more. Right? So you can't call yourself Protestant. In fact, I won't class you as religious at all. The only religion I think you're into is the demonistic stuff. Because you didn't really stop your brother, did you? And you didn't. Your mother didn't say no, did she either? You know what I mean? They kept their mouth shut. Right? And he had to take the public and then the outcry to get his brother removed as a royal, right? One gone. What he was doing is he's betraying the people. His brother were. So was his mum, because his mum didn't say nothing, right? I'm spitting facts. I just see it plain and simple. A simple eye, like a child. A simple eye, right? But they'll come for you if you say anything. No, facts is facts. How is that going to change that the fact that you swore an oath in front of God to defend the faith, and now you've changed your mind? You changed your mind. You're a defender of all faiths because the government's told you to do it. Where's your balls, man? Where's your testes? Nowhere I can see. Because you've become a total hypocrite, right? You're blaspheming. You're sinning against the Spirit, right? If you had one, because I know a lot of people in the world don't have a conscience, so therefore it never motivates the heart, right, to do what's right. Now he's supposed to be the head of the church, right? Not very good head, if you ask me. Not a very good head of the church, right? Because he compromises himself. Hang on, he doesn't need to sign forms from the government. He can refuse, but they never do. Because they can always be removed by the government, right? They're just puppets. Look, none of the kings or queens or governments are my leaders, representatives, or anything. Jesus is. He's my king. He's my representative. And there's not one goddamn religious person in this world, any of them, any government or any corporation can tell me any different. That's your point about bonding with God, right? Bonding with God individually, right? I make an oath to God, but I do it privately and I stick to it. It's hard, but you got to stick to it, right? Most people don't care, right? They don't care. They're oblivious to the fact what's going on, right? I'm not oblivious, and I'm not ashamed to say it, because I build my treasures in heaven, not on earth. Right? It's all temporary. They could take your money off you, which they're planning to do, by the way. You'll have nothing and be happy. Now they're coming for Burnham's talking about coming after your house, right? And other things, by the way. And he wasn't even elected right? He wasn't even elected. He had a little small constituents down south, 9,000 out of 50 million people, 60 million people in this country, right? And yet he weren't even an MP a month ago or 2 months ago. He weren't even an MP. Hang on, what qualifications has he got? None. He's been put in there to push, to back up the digital ID, because now they've got rid of Starmer. He's done his job. They'll bring in somebody else now that'll even hammer it even more, right? Look, this country is disgusting. The amount of hypocrisy, oath breakers, promises that get broken, right? That's why they're serious in God's eyes. Because if God kept it, if God said something about a promise, you think he'd keep it? Yes, he would. Because he's not a mere man to tell lies. He's God, right? He's not a mere man to tell lies. God isn't. Yes, these people are imperfect. But there's no excuse if you're making an oath, it's serious in God's eyes. Because he did it publicly and he did it in front of everyone, right? Pretend to defend the faith. But now, yesterday, he's changed his mind and he signed it. Right? He's a defender of all faiths. Hang on. How can all the faiths be right? You're talking shit, mate. You're talking shit. Right? Because that many religions, they all can't be right unless it's run by the devil, which that means they're all not right, then are they? If it's run all by the devil, because you all cover up pederasty. Hey, all of them, every fucking one of them. Governments, corporations, and all religions, right? Sex trafficking, drug trafficking, you name it. Nothing's off the table for them. So any person in the authority that gives an oath, I just take it with a pinch of salt. Like, yeah, whatever. Prove it. Prove that you're gonna stick to your oath. Prove who you're saying you are when you're not. Right? But anyway, a lot of people don't understand. In God's eyes, doesn't matter who you give an oath to. In God's eyes, you stick to it. Because if you don't, you've brought your promise. But yeah, hang on. All these people turn around and try and accuse God of breaking his promises when he's never give a promise in the. Well, he has given promises to like Abraham to spread his seed, or that and the other. Let God says, "Let yes mean yes, no mean no," not the other way around. Right? Because anything else that's extended beyond that, yes or no, or I'll try, but I'm not promising anything, but I'll try. No, 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 no. Anything beyond that is from the devil because he wants to mix words. He's clever with his words, the devil, right? Why do you think he makes contracts with these film stars and song industry and all the rest of it with these famous people? Words. That's why you should always read contracts. Always. No matter if it takes you ages, but these companies don't want you. The government don't want you to read the contracts. You know why? Because it takes ages. So they don't want you to go away and read it and then come back and say, nah, thanks. Because I don't like that bit and I don't like that bit. Right? And you can't by law because it's a binding contract. Why do they think you have to sign it? They don't sign it though, do they? No, they don't. Because they don't see it as binding on them. But it is really. Because you can't have one saying yeah and one just say you do as I told. No. You have to read what they're saying and what they've written down and then decide, hang on, where's your signature in this? Because I'm not signing it just on my own. No. It's called entrapment. Right? It's called entrapment to do that. They're not fully disclosing the full facts. That's why they get fed up when you're not signing quick enough. Right? Because they don't want you to go and read it. Because it exposes for who they are. So oath breakers out there, oath breakers, promisers, right? Your judgment will come, especially for one particular person, hey? One particular person, hey? Well, I wouldn't say just one particular person. I'd say all the religious leaders, I'm saying, not the rank and file, because they've been deceived, right? Unless you get a paedophile coming into the church. Yeah, they're accountable too because they know what they're doing. They're only coming into church to abuse the kids, right? I'll just say it the way it is. All religious leaders, right? All government officials, be careful what you do and what you say. Believe me, be careful, right? Can't wait for the two witnesses to come. boy, they're going to shoot you lot down. Same with the corporations. And you're going to want to kill them because they speak truth, reminding you people, the fact that you've got something serious coming your way by God and his son Jesus, right? Anyway, I just wanted to discuss as well. In Matthew, the disciples were asking about the times of the signs of the end. You know, when's it going to come? What's going to happen? And he talks about earthquakes, disasters, one after the other. And I looked up in the last week, we've had 8 to 12 earthquakes around the world. 8 to 12. Never mind all the rest before. Hey, and that's in 1 week. Hey, yeah, things are speeding up. Earthquake, one after two in Venezuela. I can't remember where the other ones were, but if you look them up, how many earthquakes in the last week or two, it'll tell you online, right? Don't use Google. Go to Brave. Don't use Google because there's total bias, man. Total bias. Lie through their teeth, right? Promise to protect people's information. Liars, because you sell it on liars. Same with the NHS. Want you to fill all these forms and questionnaires and how you feel and all this, that, and the other, you know why? Because, we protect your data, don't go nowhere else. No. When you forget about it, they sell that data on, right? Oath breakers. I thought you guys signed an oath saying that you won't harm anyone. Well, that's not just physical, it's emotional too. It's emotional too, right? Shame on you. Shame on the government. Shame on all the religions. And I can't wait to come back with my brother Jesus. So I'm going to point every goddamn one of you out because you'll all be goddamned, right? Because God will damn you, right? And I can't wait. You won't be able to destroy me when I'm a spirit being, but if you kill me, I'll get there faster. And therefore, you won't be able to kill me again, will you? Because I'll be in spirit form. I can't wait. I really can't. Anyway, I'm just getting a bit excited now, so I'm gonna leave it here now. I promise I'm gonna leave it here. So you guys have a good one. Think about what I've said. Yeah, and for the people who are genuine in the heart and in the conscience, may God bless you. And for the people that aren't, repent, and maybe if you're sincere, God will forgive you. Right? But a lot of them won't because they're too busy tied up in the physical, materialistic. Because that's what Satan does. Remember, if you're doing something right, you get persecuted, you get squashed, you get your video censored, you get the police coming to your door, you get the government trying to put you in prison, you get the NHS trying to make you look like crazy and put you in prison, in a psyche ward or whatever, right? Because Satan doesn't like truth, right? He uses the truth and then twists it, like he did with Jesus in the garden, in the wilderness, or like in the Garden of Eden, twisting, mixing truth with lies, right? So understand, time is short. The end is not far off. The Great Tribulation is definitely not far off, especially all the eight earthquakes, 12 earthquakes in the last week or two. So anyway, you guys have a good one. Take care. Like I said, the people with kind hearts, and good consciences, healthy ones at that, may God bless you. The other ones, I implore you, please repent while you can. God might find in his heart to forgive you, but you got to continue with that. You got to continue with your conscience being trying to be clean and your heart being clean and truthful, like an innocent child. You see what I'm saying? Anyway, you guys have a good one, and may God bless for the people who do what's right. Catch you later.